First of all, welcome to this first meeting of this particular session of 4 years. It's the Finance Strategy and Management Committee for 5:30 p.m. The first item will be election of chair and deputy, but before we go on to that, there will be I'm asking your permission to include an emergency item onto this. I've already mentioned it to one or two of you. If that could be tagged on to the end of this meeting, be most grateful. Can I have a proposer and second? It is. Thank you.
Difficult to vote on something we don't have a clue what it is.
What give us a clue?
I think it's a confidential matter, Kev, so
It's a confidential matter.
yeah, because it's a matter of staff, so you know. So with that, I'll move. Would give me a vote on that, please, because I know where a proposer.
I don't need the decision from.
That's unanimous.
Okay.
You've got a talkie now, haven't you?
Sorry.
Hey,
I haven't, you're a
your fault, Steph.
job.
Right. The next one is item 1, election of chair and the deputy. Can I ask for a proposer for the chair, please? Councillor Hart, yes?
Yes, Councillor Wayne Rogers.
Right. Can I have a seconder for
And that, yeah.
right? Councillor Jones is seconded that. Are there any other nominations for chair? Right. Although there's no other nominations, we must have a vote on it. So can you please raise your hands if you're okay with Wayne? Right. Thank you very much. Wayne, would you take the chair? You've been duly elected. Do you want to sit here by Sarah?
Can do that. I can whisper to Sarah.
Smack his face.
Chairs.
Yeah. Don't have any messing with him, I tell you. This is where he needs me as I go past. Oh.
That one, Thank you all for your nominations. Second item on the agenda is the election of deputy chair. Councillor Hart.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Chris Wood.
Aesthetics.
Seconded by Councillor Jones.
Yes.
Sorry.
It's Jack.
Did you want to quit?
It haven't got the lanyard on.
In time.
It'd be a long year.
It is, yeah.
You've been in the sun, by the way.
Might need that name back.
Any other nominations? All in favour?
Chris in favour.
That's a Chris Wood. Thank you.
All right, sitting here, Chair.
Do you want
Yeah,
to come here?
You need to do it.
At the moment, no. All right, number 2, apologies.
I've just had apologies from Councillor Salt and Councillor Brady.
All right. Councillor Jackson.
Councillor Charlie Smith. Just had a text message off her.
Okay,
Agency.
and are the apologies justified reasons?
So,
Okay, that's okay.
thank you.
All right. Number 3, declarations of interest. Disclosable pecuniary interests and any other interests, 1 and 2.
As and when, Mr. Chair.
On finances, not particularly on this one, but on others, as and when it pops up, you think, oh, I should have declared an interest, do it as and when it comes up, really. Number 4, confirm the minutes of the Finance Strategy and Management Committee meeting held on the 25th of April. Was approved in council on the 9th of May.
Move it then, Chair.
Andy.
All in favour? Yeah. Number 5, 5A. Receive an internal audit report. Touched. Yeah, if you could go through it, please, and then I just want to comment on one item, please.
Thank you. So, for those of you who are new to Town Council, each year we have a process whereby our internal control councillors come along, usually quarterly, to go through our books and our paperwork, whatever they want to look at. Once a year, we have an internal auditor, and that's a lady who's from outside our organisation and is approved and qualified to work with local councils. And she came to visit us on 31st of March. And for the year ending 31st of March, my apologies, she came on the 19th of May. And your report is in the pack as regards the items that she looked at while she was here. We felt it was a very thorough process. She asked lots of delving questions, which we were obviously able to answer. Her outcome at the bottom, she said, my inspection of the council's records for the year ended 31st of March found no areas of concern. Assertion K was not covered, so that's in relation to the annual return document, as it's not applicable to our council. I conclude that Biddulph Town Council's system of internal control meets the needs of the council to a good standard. And that's what you want, really, that as council, that's what you're looking for, that somebody from outside our organisation has given us that summary.
Yes, thank you. So that's what I was going to comment on, the bottom paragraph, really. Don't want to name all the ladies who were involved, because in case I miss one, but it's a team effort. And it's thank you to all the team for what you do. Obviously, it's shown from an external auditor that you're doing a wonderful job. Yeah.
That's for Hawley.
Councillor Hall, sorry.
The move that we accept it.
Yes, seconded.
All in favour of accepting the report? Okay. 5B, receive presentation on the annual governance. This is the chief officer again, who
The photocopier is having a moment, so we might, if it's all right, if we go C before B, will anybody mind if we come back just to B for innocent?
The one with all the ticks on in place, the one that you're waiting for.
If the one, no, that's the one that I'm going to show you
Alright.
now. That's all right. So,
Yeah. Just interrupt, I know we've sort of finished last one, but I've noticed that the information which we're given is just indicative of the kind of questions and things asked. Is that available for inspection as a completed form?
absolutely.
I would like to see where we are 1 year versus next year, you know.
That's what's coming out, the photocopy.
No, is that what we're waiting for? Well,
that's what we're waiting for.
That's what I need you to look at, but what I wanted you to do, if you take one and pass them on of those, I don't want you to necessarily look at this or.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Take this one, please. I'm gonna counter through it if that's all right, and then you can take it home for your consideration.
Can I ask Sarah, how do I follow this on the electronics? Because you keep talking about Bs and Cs and I've got it on screen, but I've not.
Maybe have a paper copy of the agenda in front of you, and then you'll know where we're up to.
I wanted you to do it electronically.
You got an electronic copy of the agenda?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It sends me to go to 5C and I don't know where the hell 5C is.
What's 5B?
Well, I've got this.
I don't understand.
That's some background, Kevin.
Sarah, again, but he is a new
I
councillor.
just don't know where to go to from that.
Oh, that's that.
We've got all these here.
That one I've got to go through.
While we're just waiting for the photocopier to finish chugging out a bit too fast. 5B, if I may just put
Oh, I
this to
see.
you,
All right, I'm with you.
this document
Okay.
that I've just tabled, which looks like
Is it a case of computer thrombosis, eh?
Oh, I'm very good.
Councillors,
Just,
I'm listening, Chair, I'm listening.
Mickey, please.
it's all right, within your packs, I've given you the governance and accountability return for 22-23. Now, that's the document that we fill in annually as a town council, and we send that then off for external audit. So we have an internal auditor, and then it goes to our external auditor, who are Mazars. So we're required to fill in that section. One part of that, internal auditor, she's got to sign the bottom of that. Another part is the figures, where we're at with our year end. And then another section of that return is the annual governance statement. So these are our accounting statements. Now, as a town council, at the next meeting, which will be the 13th of June, you are going to be required, which you will have to do every year, to confirm that you are satisfied with each of these statements. So I thought, rather than, hoping that you would know that by the time it comes to the June meeting, and for the benefit of those who are new to the town council, create a kind of crib sheet for you as to how you know each one of these statements is correct. So first one being, we have put in place arrangements for effective financial management during the year and for the preparation of accounting statements. So then the next column is, what does Biddle Town Council do? And we do all of those things to make sure that we can say yes to that statement. We maintained, the next one, an adequate system of internal control, including measures designed to prevent and detect fraud and corruption and reduce its effectiveness. So then that next is the same. It will be those things that we put in place. So I'm happy to go through each one in more detail and explain to you what each of those items are in the second column. Or you can have the opportunity to look at it, consider it, and come back to me on another occasion if you want to kind of drill down into some of that, just to see what that looks like in practice.
So if anything crops up while you're reading it, just give the a shout. It's another time. Should go through it with it.
It's fine, all right to say. I'm happy to
Chris.
go through it.
Probably following on from what Alan was on the computer then, has that been done for this year or is?
So that's what we're in the process of doing.
Oh, you're right.
So
So,
on the 13th of
Doesn't
June,
say, yeah.
Town Council, you'll have to approve these statements
Yeah.
and the figures we've got. Then we have to submit those to ourselves before the 30th of June. That's when our external audit. That's when our external audit. Thank you.
and that gives us the financial position in terms of reserves and things like, yeah.
Thank you. I ask a question, Wayne?
Yes, Bill. Yes, Mr. Mayor, and then yeah, sorry.
You only make payments to third parties.
Yeah.
Is it the banking transferred or is it a check?
At the moment, it's all checked.
Checks at the
Yeah.
moment.
With 3 signatories.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we need to do this year, now that we've got, we're up to date with Scribe, so Scribe is our accounting package, we started that this year. And we've got.
Is that a specialist?
Yeah.
Accounting.
Yeah. So there's 2 main packages, we were with Rialtus before. And this one's Scribe. The beauty of Scribe is it's all cloud-based, whereas Rialtus before, with the package we had, was just based on somebody's computer, which didn't work if lots of us were looking at whatever it was at the same time.
The follow-up comment would be, what processes are you putting in place to prevent fraud on that account by third parties and town council account?
So there's no way of anybody else logging into our Scribe. It's all,
Into the bank, I mean.
oh, well, we aren't doing online banking at the moment.
Right,
So
okay.
so the hope during this year will be that we'll move from NatWest, or at least we may keep some element of NatWest, just for paying in cash. But the account that will hopefully open with Unity is another town and parish kind of specialist. The beauty of Unity is when you do online banking, you can do it with 3 approvers. So at the moment, we have 3 signatories on the checks, and it's a more convoluted process because you've got 3 levels of approval, but that would meet our financial regs. And most banks, when they do online banking, don't have that safety net in, which is one of the reasons we looked at them.
It sounds easier than it actually is to get this online banking done. It's a bit of a nightmare, really, but it's just ongoing. Just Ken, Dave, and then Chris. wants to speak.
Yeah, I've reread this and I think I've answered my own question. But with item 4, it's how often do we advertise the fact that the electors can inspect our records, if you like? And is this done electronically as well as on a hard copy?
Sure.
Please, yeah.
Yeah, so each year, as we're going through our external audit, there's a formal period where electors have the right to scrutinise those figures that are currently being audited. So there's a period, assume basically the day after we send our documentation in for external audit, then the period of elector rights commences.
If I can just stop you there, Sarah, how is that advertised to members?
It's on the website,
Yes.
and we're required to fill in certain forms for the auditors, which then go on the notice boards.
Right,
Yeah.
yep, fine.
Usually, there's only one person who ever requests the account.
Right.
And he does it every year, so we just provide it. as
Send it
he
in the post.
requests it. No, not quite that much, but I think the reason we don't get a lot of uptake with that is because all of our finances are on the website anyway.
Yeah,
So as a town council, you approve every payment through town council, so that's on every set of minutes. It's, well,
Yeah, thank you.
it's there to see already,
Right.
you know, and through finance, you are scrutinising budgets and that's
yeah.
reconciliations.
Plus, we got the website now, haven't we? No, TV thing, yeah. So, well, thank you for that, Sarah. You've answered it.
Thanks for that, Dave.
These two documents that you've issued to us then effectively are in terms of the annual government statement section 1. This is saying yes to everything. And section 2 that you've just given to us is the figures that are actually going to go in too. So what we're saying then is that in agreeing these, we as the finance committee are sort of agreeing to the statements on here, which is then going to go to the town council on the 13th. Now, if what we're saying is the town council have got to do it, then are we saying that these two documents have got to go out then with the minutes, the agenda, etc., for the next town council? Because obviously everybody needs to see them because they're going to be agreeing to things
Yeah.
that potentially they haven't seen as yet.
So absolutely, so only the town council can agree the annual return and the content of that. But I've taken the opportunity of having this committee to show you the draft of the figures and show you this document and get any kind of feedback you might have in relation to that. So that actually is a wider town council. We can either amend this if necessary, or I'll issue it when I issue the part completed document that's ready for signatures, minutes, references and all.
And just as a follow on, in terms of section 3, the external auditor's report and certificate, will that be done by June the 13th, or is that going to be done?
So that's the bit that Mazars complete. So when they finish with us, they've completed that page. Yeah.
They will get 1 and 2
Yeah.
presented to them.
So they get,
Yeah.
sorry, Chair,
Yeah,
they get
sorry.
the whole the rest of the document. So the internal auditors from her bit, and we fill in the numbers, the accounting statements, and then the external auditors of the back page when they're happy with us, which hopefully will.
Okay, thank you. I've got a few left. Chris next.
Thank you. And I think Sarah's answered part of my question. In terms of the information, because obviously there's a lot of spend that goes through the town council and it's, you know, it's highlighted. In terms of, certainly on item 6 on total other payments, which is quite an extensive amount of money, do we do an itemised expenditure? Is there a minimum we have to put there?
No, so every transaction that we make goes on the town council minutes. Items over £500 are reported in addition to that. In a section on the website, there's a transparency section and we report on any of those items on a monthly, quarterly basis as well. So those.
The reason obviously it's quite a significant figure, isn't it, for running over the year, and obviously we've got to look forward, then you get your staff costs come off that. So, you know, as long as the public can see the transparency, which I'm sure they do, you know. And second, the reserves policy, what is the minimum we have to keep in reserve?
I'm just carrying on answering, is that all right?
Yeah, you carry on, please. You know the answers more than I do at the moment.
I'll do this again today. So there's a joint practitioner's guide, which is a document that is put together for the benefit of town and parish councils, and lots of different agencies feed into it. They suggest that 3 months worth of operating costs would be a good position. I have previously taken the view that 6 months of the precept would be a good position, because then if there was ever a reason why the town council ceased to operate, we'd have 6 months of precept to settle things. Yeah. When we had some internal control conversations with Chris and Dave last time, there was a suggestion that should be more than that, because actually our income is a lot more than our precept.
Mhm.
So saying 6 months of your precept, it maybe should be 6 months of total income.
Right, yeah.
Which would be the burial figures, the income from this building and the rest of it. So I think that's one I'm going to bring back to you with some options. That's,
I think in the past, the authorities used to have, and I'm talking probably where they say 5% of what your budget is kept in reserve as an emergency, but we don't, we've moved away from that, have we now?
it's I don't say it's woolly because there is guidance there, but there's lots of different interpretations of it.
All right.
So I think we just need to make sure we're in a position where we could deal with any staffing costs, any issues in relation to any of our assets. And as I say, at the moment, I've put aside probably about 180,000 as a general reserve. Obviously,
The guidance. with
Yeah,
this.
yeah, That's fine.
Thank you. We've got quite a few, yeah. Alan next.
I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, John then next.
Councillor Jones, right.
Okay, well, in this,
Just say, I think that's disgraceful when that comes in a meeting. I'm going to go with you, Chair, but we should not be doing it, particularly in a public meeting.
okay then, I'll
Thank you, Chair.
correct myself. I thought in full council, we use surname.
Any public meeting, we shouldn't be doing it. Anyway, that's just me.
Use the first names. If you want to be called surnames, Councillor Jones.
Personally, I don't care, Chair, but I think it looks bad if it's a public meeting.
I agree in full council, but I thought in these small, well, not the small
Argue back.
ones, but in this type.
On the back of what Chris was saying, sorry, Councillor.
Wait a minute. Never record a fucking mouth movement.
See what you've done to me? Total of the payments, I noticed they're up well over 100K. Is that just from gas and electricity and?
yes, there's a lot of that. We've completed some bigger projects this year as well, which are included in that at the burial ground. Some enhancements there.
Yeah.
Town hall as well.
Yeah.
I have.
It seemed like a big lump. That's all.
It is.
Yeah.
We thought the same today. We've no reason to suggest that Scribe has churned out a figure that's not correct. But I think probably as a committee, that's the right question to ask. We should do more kind of analysis of that.
I noticed also on, if I may, Chair, on item 9, fixed assets, that's up 30K. What have we taken on that's worth 30K?
Well, we've got the civic regalia revalued, which
Right.
quite a lot to that. We've also,
See you listening.
no question. I'd have to get the list for you.
No, it's all right. I just. It seemed
As well today, two of the.
like a building's worth of money somehow, that did, you know what I mean? Well, shed anyway. Shed. It's all right. I was just interested, really.
Yeah, no, we've redone the way that we look at assets this year because they're all now on Scribe, which is obviously what we talked about.
Right.
We've just invested in more
Okay. Well,
items.
Okay.
That's-
thank you, Chair.
That's a heart then next.
Yeah, Chair, I tend to agree with the revised idea of 6 months operating costs. We've taken on a lot of responsibilities, particularly this town hall and other things, with more staff. And I think that may be a more appropriate position to be in. I think that would be advantageous. And we've got a lot of projects, and you mentioned burial ground. There's some improvement work and some new projects there that need to be looked at. And I think in light of that, I think the 6 months of operating costs is probably more appropriate. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hawley.
Yeah, well, it was really to follow up what Councillor Wood had said, that in terms of why Chris and I actually sort of came up with the idea that perhaps our reserves ought to be increased. More or less what Andrew Councillor Hart has just said that potentially we employ more staff now. We've obviously got the running of the town hall now, the burial grounds and everything else, and I think potentially our outgoings, if anything did go wrong, are far greater than what they used to be, and obviously we should be looking at actually having more money there to cover us if anything went wrong. That was our theory when we sort of made the suggestion. So that's really where we're coming from. I thought just sort of highlight why Chris and I came up with the idea.
Right, thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Not you.
I've taken on board the comments about with number 6, because it is one heck of a hike. I would have liked to, personally, I would like to see that broken down. But if we look at 7 and 8, last year, was a lot higher than we're doing this year. There must be some reason for it. And the same goes for number 8. Again, where, total cash short-term investments is a lot less this year than it was last year. Is there an element of guesswork with this?
Not a lot left, isn't it?
I think it's a lot.
2,000.
It was 20,750,000.
Oh, yeah. We got wrong.
Where's the guesswork?
Sorry.
I'm saying, there's 7 and 8 any guesswork, because
We'd be all taking that and shocked.
if I can then, Mr. Chairman, why is it less this year then?
Because we've relied, as I suppose is the point of having reserves, we've used some of our reserves to pay some of our energy bills that we hadn't budgeted for last year.
Right.
Just a point of clarification on that, it's actually 2.63%, which is not an excessive variance.
Unless you're paying the bill.
Unless it's like in front of you as a lump sum, but in the scheme of things on expenditure, we've, been within 3% when inflation is running 10-11% plus. It's actually not an unreasonable figure.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it's acceptable figure.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's not an unreasonable figure.
Well,
I'm going to say it's a laudable figure.
Finished. Through the chair,
Okay.
we're here to sort of look at these figures and challenge them.
Absolutely, but that's what I'm saying, I'm clarifying, it's 2.6% when inflation's running.
I'm going to arm wrestle this.
Got you down. I've got you down, yeah. Sure it's not plucked, I can assure you it's not plucked out, yeah, it's all calculated. Councillor Yates and then Jackson.
Councillor Yates just spoken.
Point of
clarification, I put the list down as people putting their hand up.
on the total of the receipts.
You're next.
A quick question is, does that include grants? And obviously, hopefully over the next year, there'll be a lot more sort of activity with grants, obviously, shared prosperity fund later on. So I would hope that if that does include grants, then next year that will show a significant increase. And the other thing is I would like to see an exception report for that £100,000 additional spend, which is next to 20% plus, isn't it, on what was the previous year? I think energy plays a large part in that, but it would be reassuring just to have the breakdown of the exceptions, not the every sort of penny, so to speak.
Yes, I don't know where to start with those questions. What was the first question?
Include
Include
grants. And
Yes.
do you think, will that next year include the shared prosperity fund grant award if we manage to get that?
Yes, it will. It's all things from income from this place. It's burials, so we also get quite a chunk of income from the burial ground. Obviously we put that aside for maintenance activities, but yeah, it's any way that we've generated income over the course of time. It doesn't come from the precinct.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry for promoted you. I think it might have been useful. I take it last year, we're talking 21-22, and this year is 22-23, because I think there's perhaps a bit of confusion there. Hence the question, is it guesswork? If that's actuals, obviously, but if that had been in there, which those years are, it might have been useful for people. And also, I think it might be useful, Sarah, especially for our newer councillors, for a paper to be sent out about how we fund this building and how over time that is going to cost us more year on year on year. Because I think it's something that's really important that we've got to be watching with our finances, that we're not going to be getting the money from the district council in the next 2 or 3, or it's going to be dropping off in the next 2, 3, 4 years. And we need to sort of have some sort of mitigation in there and what we're going to do to actually to counterbalance that, as it were. But I think for the newer councillors who don't really know that situation, I think it's important that perhaps people know exactly what that is, what that arrangement is for this building with SMDC.
Can
Yes, please.
my plan for the next meeting, I don't want anyone running for the hills, was to put together a paper which absolutely explains how we.
Yeah, I thought you'd beat me to it.
No, not necessarily. But also we need to update our 3-year forecast. So I'll do that as part of that work, and then you can be absolutely clear where everything I'm going to.
Right, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lawson. Lawson.
Thank you. It's to use the word guesswork, a slightly different context. I refer to what we talked about a few minutes ago, which was reserves and an adequate level of reserves. Mention was made about perhaps linking them to proposed expenditure for 6 months. The other was to link them to proposed income for 6 months. And could I say, whichever of those two is the more predictable, then reduce the amount of guesswork, ought to be the one, if we're considering a 6-month link, to link it to income or expenditure, which is the more predictable of the two, if indeed one is more predictable. Small points.
Okay, got the point. Thank you. Dave Hawley again, sorry.
I'm slightly concerned that people asking for sort of breakdowns on a lot of this stuff. It's already there in the account. Why do we need to do it all again? Essentially, these effectively are figures which are going to go into that report, which has to be submitted. Yes, there are queries about them, but you might as well just present these and actually put the accounts on the table and sort of say, well, it's there. It's already been done. So why do we have to do it again? That's my sort of feeling about it. You know, that if you want to know why these things are different, look at the accounts, because it's all detailed in the accounts that would have to be produced for audit every year.
Just saying about this town hall for the future for new.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's not been a lot. The other things you can't say. It's all in the accounts.
Where in the accounts? Sorry.
Well, that's what we're
Have you
getting to now.
now?
Just
Yeah, in the accounts, it will tell you everything, and you can see where all the payments are coming from, where all the income's coming from. It's all there.
We haven't reached that.
Essentially, so what Sarah might as well do is just produce us up, give us a copy of the accounts with this, rather than do it again. I'm just trying to sort of why make work?
I would like to come in on
I was
the
just going to
suggestion.
suggest, would it be helpful if, well, this is my plan anyway, but to kind of draw this together, where there has been a significant variance, one that would be highlighted by Mazars, so not it won't be the 2 point whatever it is, that won't be one that we'll be expecting to explain away, but where there's been a significant variance, if I provide that information with your town council pack for the 30th of June, so that you can see that then.
See the breakdown.
So you have had all of the payment information as a town council, you've approved all of that, but I get the point that this is bringing it all together, and you know, you just want to be absolutely
On
clear.
me. Just, yeah, they've got Chris Wood first. Then.
Yeah, I mean, probably backing Dave up. I mean, there is a lot of data out there, a lot of facts and figures on where we are and what we've got, and what we've spent, and you know, the percentage increases and everything else. So I think potentially sometimes it's overwhelming for new councillors, because when they go on, you know, you get that much paperwork. Sometimes you don't know, you know, your head from your elbow. So I just think in terms of giving members the right steer as well, and to what direction to go to, But are we, going back to the original point where we were talking about, councillor Hart said about the 6 months, are we putting that forward as a proposal to town council or not, as a recommendation to this committee?
I think probably, if you don't mind, I'll come up for the next finance committee, I'll come up with the options.
Yeah, right.
So, you know, if.
Like a risk assessment plan.
It's principle,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
will be the-
Yeah, that's fine.
Would be the amount we put
Needs to
towards that.
needs to be considered, doesn't it? Not
Yeah,
just
yeah.
jump to another quick answer at the moment.
Because you did a risk assessment, no?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that would be my preferred
All right,
approach.
we've
Is that
got-
okay?
That was Hopkins and then Yates, then we're going to wrap it up on, I think, this one, else we're going to round in circles.
Just for clarity, so these are the précis of accounts we haven't seen yet, is that right?
Well, so every transaction goes through town council, so town council over 20, in 22, 23 will have approved every transaction.
Yeah, I know,
that
but not-
goes into this.
I mean, so this is what, so all this information on here hasn't actually been shown to any council yet.
This is your first
This is-
chance to
so
see
this
what
is
we are
just the-
potentially submitting
This is
to.
just like summary, basically.
Yeah.
So the detail,
Headline figures.
yeah, so the detail we haven't seen.
But collectively over the months, it's accumulated, and at the end. we'll see
Every
it's
month.
full.
Right, right.
Yeah. Monthly, yeah.
Yeah,
Ah, right.
if you got every month's agendas out, you'd find all the figures, but not on one sheet of paper yet.
Yeah, I get you. Right, got that, right.
I think that's an interesting question though, so it would be helpful then for new councillors at town council to see essentially see the balance sheet and see more detail behind those figures.
Yeah, because, yeah, I've got seen nothing. I mean, appreciate councillors will have seen one every month. I haven't seen anything. Well, send us an email back. Don't want to pay more paper.
Right, okay, we'll do that.
Thank you.
Actually, it's a quick one, please.
Yes, just quickly, I certainly acknowledge what councillor Hall said, and yes, you're right, but in some respects, just seen an exception report, which is just the highlighted features, the highlights of the year, the lowlights of the year, so to speak, does focus the mind and does guide policy forward, much as it does when we highlight achievements and don't talk about everything else which goes on as normal anyway. So I think there's always value to have an exception report because it does guide you as to the way the world is going, focus the mind. That's all I'm saying.
Well, thank you. Are we all satisfied on that point at the moment?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Moving on then.
What do you want to do? So on B, you were receiving those figures.
Aye.
Do you want to agree that you've received them?
Yeah, just all in agreement that we receive the figures and
Can I move that?
satisfied with what's going on so far.
Can I move that,
And
Chair?
then we will see them again at full council.
Yeah.
All in favour? Okay. Not to see now.
Yeah.
5C, prepare the accounting statement 22-23, which presented to town council on the 13th of June 2023. If I come on there again.
No, you've done that already.
Yeah, what? Anything else you need to bring in? Now it's on the agenda item C.
Well, no,
It's all
I
been
think we-
covered before, don't it, really?
these are the figures that we will be presenting
Yeah,
in the annual return.
I'm just making sure we covered every item on the
Yeah,
agenda,
no,
that's
no,
all,
no,
yeah.
you're absolutely right. So, but with those figures for the town council, one thing, sent to town council for approval in June, I'm sending more detailed accounts for those who are new councillors, and then some analysis of the variations, the kind of variance report, for your information as well. That's okay.
Okay, all okay with that one? Okay, moving. Do you want to speak, Mr. Mayor?
No, just.
No, sorry, I
yeah.
think you put your hand up now. All right, number 6. Set of Finance Strategy Management Committee actions for 23-24.
Okay, so it's this time of year when we start to put together our action plan for the coming year, appreciating that of course is a bit more challenging because this is your first meeting as a committee, and I haven't given you anything to look at necessarily, but is there an idea of the sorts of projects that you as a committee want to work on? You want to do more analysis of burials probably and burial income and
If the dead, they're dead.
so we've already talked about more analysis of the town hall. So one of the objectives that was in last year's action plan was the management of community facilities. So possibly the first piece of work that we do is income expenditure issues around those. Everybody thinks that's a reasonable way forward. As a committee, you look at kind of policy development. So if there's any kind of policy amendments that you want us to look at there. Obviously, we usually look at the grant scheme through this committee, so we can make some amendments there. If anybody wants to look at that, or
Well, there's a few questions to be asked if you want to bring them in at the moment, but you won't go through all that.
No,
table.
no.
Right. Councillor Woodburn.
Yeah, I just think it might be useful as, because we are the finance strategy committee, to ask all councillors potentially if there's any projects they would like to progress in the next year and whether, and then we can look at the funding streams, what we can access, whether it be the Shared Prosperity Fund and, you know, the Community Initiative Fund and whatever. So there's a number of avenues we could potentially go up. But I think it might be better if we ask all councillors, the full council, that, you know, everybody, let's be honest, we're all, you know, parochial in terms of your own ward. You want the best you can get for your own ward. And I think it's only right we ask all the council if there's any ideas and not just ourselves.
That's fine. So normally we'd ask every committee if there are any priorities. So if you kind of sit on the Recreation and Amenities Committee, I guess it's the priorities as regards burials, allotments, footpaths, that kind of thing. And communities usually about civic events and that kind of town centre activity potentially. Perhaps we can revisit that, put that together at a different point, perhaps with a draft, see what people think.
So new season, new 4 years. Got 3 more speakers. Councillor Jackson, next, please.
Yeah, Councillor Woods touched on exactly what I was going to say, actually, and it's a little bit. So it's great having the projects there. That's really important. I think everybody should be sort of thinking of what can we do, not necessarily do it, but it's on the shelf. Because you never know what funding might be around the corner sometimes. I mean, we sort of apparently we lost out on stuff because we didn't, or apparently didn't have stuff on the shelf ready, but we know that was wrong. So I think that's important. So actually knowing which way these funds are actually going as well will help to steer some of those things. So I think really it's a blank piece of paper for all councils, really, just try and come up with something. It doesn't necessarily have to be a new award, just for the town of Biddulph generally.
Thank you. Councillor Yates.
Yes, just following on from the analysis of the costs going forward with the town hall, where we are with the contracts for the tenants which are in here. I mean, what the longevity is for that, what the occupancy is of the rooms, and what space potentially we've got available to do other things with. And also, if it's not too onerous a job, because it'd be good to have a sort of indication of the occupancy of the rooms which we rent out. Or, you know, it's not only the costs for us; it's what guaranteed baseline revenue we're getting in, and when we need to consider, you know, recontracting for that. We've obviously got police social services and everything else as a fixed term.
It's a massive thing at the moment, the cost of living, I'm afraid. Councillor Hall.
Yeah, the chief officer mentioned, you know, feeding in from each of the committees, you know, Rec and Amenities and community. And those members are used to, you know, coming up, looking at projects, particularly within those committees. And it might be an opportunity for them to discuss at committee what their ideas may be and then feed into full council. So we've got then a comprehensive idea, because each of us have our specialities that we've looked at in the past. You know, and each of the committees are different. So I agree with that idea that it should feed in from the committees into the full council, and then we assess it and look at it, and we pull out the ideas that we want to concentrate on in the next 12 months.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hawley.
Yeah, I mean, sort of following on from what Councillor Yates said, really. I mean, obviously, one of the things we need to do is look at the town hall and what we're spending on that. And I think it is basically expenditure across the whole of the council that we should be reviewing in terms of, okay, we've got projects that are going to have to spend money on those, but the sort of data expenditure we perhaps need to sort of look at in terms of making sure we're getting value for money. The other thing that we perhaps need to look at is ways of actually increasing income. Because obviously we're trying our best to bring people into the town hall, but are there other ways that we might increase income for the council as well? Perhaps we sort of need to review those and sort of have a sort of, not say a working group, but some sort of get together and sort of think ideas on how we can increase the income of the council outside of the precept and obviously grants.
Yeah, you touched on again, we just say you don't want a working group, but yeah, we need all pulled together how to keep this place surviving, don't we, really? It's getting worse, not better, unfortunately. Energy costs are amazing, out going through the roof at the moment. We've got to do something, not at this moment in time, but we've got to look at something, reducing the electric bill to start with, haven't we? And the heating in the winter, all cheaper to buy everybody a pullover, I think, at the moment. Councillor Hart.
Yeah, just briefly, I spent quite a bit of time in Peak Park. Peak Park, like every other effectively local authority, there are certain funding streams which are not accessible to them. So they created a charitable arm. I'm just throwing this one up in the air. And that means that people can deal with them through the charitable arm for good projects, whereby they wouldn't normally be able to access that funding. I'm talking from private companies and all sorts of other organisations that are attuned to government, but not like government, if you know what I mean. So it's worth as a possibility. We'll see whether there may be, a charitable option that we could go down, because then we can provide money for organisations that would be normally outside our remit.
Yes, thank you for that, and it's something to be thought about, isn't it, Councillor Jones?
Thank you, Chair. It's a sound idea, Andrew. Councillor Hart. But is that not because Peak Park is a national park? Is that? I'm just wondering if that would apply to us.
It's effectively through the chair. It is a unitary in itself because it has its own planning, and it takes on a lot of the responsibilities of districts and boroughs. But certain funding streams, because of its nature, they can't access them. People want to give them money to do good deeds and projects, but can't do it because they are a quasi judicial body like a local authority. And therefore, this gets around that and means that people like Severn Trent Water or somebody like that, I'm not mentioning, I shouldn't be mentioning any particular names, but it means that certain commercial organisations can team up with you and do charitable projects. And they find this very, very useful with some of the wildlife and ecological projects that they have. They wouldn't be able to get the money off an organisation, but the charitable arm can.
Satisfied with that, Councillor?
Oh, it's worth a punt, obviously, but I just wonder if it is because Peak Park is governing a national park, isn't it? It's not. People leave money to national park. They don't leave money, generally speaking, to town and parish councils. So I'm just wondering if it's worth, as I say, it's worth a punt. I'm sure Sarah will investigate, but don't know. Doesn't sound very. I'm not holding my breath. Good idea, but
Sure, the office staff will take that one up. Councillor Yates.
Yeah, just coming back on a previous comment I made briefly, and really just for the benefit of newer councillors, in case they're looking at alarm that not being on the Town and Community and Recreation Amenities Committee and therefore concerned about not having the ability of putting projects forward. I think the mechanism for putting projects forward still stands for people who aren't on committees. It just means that when it comes to sort of voting things through, you haven't strictly speaking got the voting rights unless you are. I don't think we do substitutes as you. If you can just explain how, for example, and only because he's here, Councillor Holdsworth isn't on town and community, isn't on recreation amenity. Therefore, all his good ideas, he hasn't got a mechanism to actually promote them to get expenditure on. But I'm sure that doesn't exist.
What to Sarah?
That's exactly what I'm saying, but I want to make that clear.
Yeah.
It's not just a case of if you're not on that committee, you can't put them forward. There is a mechanism for putting them forward for everybody to put ideas forward. It's just that certain things are discussed and debated at certain committees.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Mr Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Really following on from Councillor Hart, I think, and I think John's mentioned it as well, I think that Sarah, there is a need for you to explore this possibility. And then perhaps you can come back to us with a yay or a nay, basically. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
So, Chair, I think, so the point of this agenda item, obviously, going back to what we said at the start, was to start to come up with some ideas for projects. So far, I think what I'm starting to work on then is further analysis of the town hall, contracts in place, the occupancy, the risks associated with that, and also looking at options to increase income for the town council, whether that be through creating a kind of charitable arm or for accessing funding that we haven't previously thought about. But kind of two initial areas for consideration over the next few months. I'm sure others will come out of the other committees as they have this agenda item on their agendas. And then the action plan usually comes back to this committee for consideration and additions. And, you know, whatever we think.
It's the start of a lot of work to be done, isn't it, really?
Yeah, don't want to leave it too late in the year, otherwise we're putting together an action plan for the year and it's not being signed off till after the summer. Well, most of the year's gone by then, hasn't it?
Right, everybody all okay with that then now?
Mhm.
Right. Move on then to number 7. See an update on the June funding fair and volunteer week activities.
Thank you.
The date's been set, so enlighten us on that.
Yeah,
please.
so it's a funding fair that I'm hoping will be benefits for us, but actually it's a really nice thing for us to do anyway. And so as part of the volunteer week, we are hosting a funding fair here at the town hall on Friday the 9th of June between 10 and 1. We've got some social media out about that at the moment and it'll go in next week's paper. It's open to any organisation in the town, whether that be one of our community groups or something that would normally attract grant funding. And there'll be all sorts of funders here, from national lottery funders to us as a town council through our grant scheme. Promote that, both our main grants pot and the town council grants pot. And there are lots of other agencies as well who might be able to support our voluntary community sector and other partners in the town. So that's hopefully very beneficial to those that we support through other means. As part of one of the other activities that week, we are going to be kind of doing live chats with some of our local groups. So the Youth Zone and Approach and Dougie Mack and Bess Johnson, Biddulph and Bloom and the Food Bank have all been approached to have a kind of question and answer session, just to give a bit of information to people about what they do as a group and to talk about the importance of volunteers for them and to give people the option to kind of come forward and be a volunteer if they want to. So I think that's probably enough of an update there.
It's how do you motivate people to get volunteer? But what does to get volunteer? They seem to carry on with it, to get the initial motivation going somehow, isn't it? Oh, I speak a few speakers already. Yates, Jones and Jackson, please. Councillor Yates.
Yes, just a couple of things. Could you print out some of the district councillor front sheets and also the county council ones? I mean, I recommend that my county council fund, the balance of it goes towards the Biddulph Works Together type groups and things, but I'm sure people will be coming there looking for funding, so that'll fit in with that. And obviously we've all got district council, we've got district council funds, and obviously town councillors, or just town council got their funds, so it would be a good idea to have to actually dish out there, so to speak. And the other thing with volunteering week activities, one of the things which I want to do with my cabinet member for the environment and climate change hat on, is actually get a regular Wednesday morning volunteering group going so that we can actually do little bits of tackling type environmental work without, and try to get into that routine where it becomes habit building, you know, because try to move it away from being ad hoc. And within that, the county council are in the process of developing a comprehensive volunteering policy, which includes signing up to make sure that you're covered with public liability insurance and whatever, which I'm canvassing to include ad hoc volunteering. In other words, people who don't do a regular pitch at a particular thing like a library or whatever. And whether we can build in to that and get Staffordshire Moorland, which is something which I'm looking at, and ourselves to actually effectively have the same policy, one policy fits all, so to speak, even if it might well be as our own insurance.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I know the answer to this probably, but is it going to be pointed out to like the remaining community associations and village hall and that thing? Yeah.
Well, Chair, if I may, what we'll do this week is just to try and pick some of those groups who might not have seen it through other methods, but we'll also copy all councillors in. So then if you've got contacts, it's no problem with somebody having it 2 or 3 times, is there? Whoever you've got contacts with, just
Yeah, okay, I'll pass them on that.
just do a bit of.
Thank you, Sarah.
Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, I'm just a bit interested in people that light the way for organisations to get funding. And how many of those have we got? Is there a list there? I mean, support Staffordshire, I'm assuming, skivvies.
So support Staffordshire, my chair,
Yeah.
has, Sharon in her role has helped pull this together. So she has spoken to the National Lottery, Co-op, Sports England, Heritage Lottery, I think Staffordshire Community Trust are coming, Asda Community Champions, Children in Need. I believe the District Council are coming, so the neighbouring forums, I'm not sure what hats they'll have on. I'm not sure who Garfield Western are, and the Leak Building Society. So there's quite a group of people who.
I'd suggest one, it might be a bit late notice for this. Coalfields Regeneration Trust might be a organisation that's have got money. We are entitled as an area to access that funding, so it might be a link with some of the groups. And secondly, with this fair, it would be really good to know, if we possibly can find out, is what good has come out of it, what groups have actually accessed funds that they may not have done, and put a figure on that to say, well, you know, this fair has brought in X amount of pounds into Middle. I think it's a really useful thing for our annual report and being a Gold Star council, or strength to our elbow.
Absolutely. Do you still sit on that now, on Coalfield Regeneration?
I sit on the Industrial Communities Alliance, so it's Coalfield Regeneration have got a membership, but it's not the Coalfield Regeneration Board as such.
Right. Yeah.
I think that should, well, I hope that's possible. We'll perhaps be able to do some questionnaires with people when they first come into the UK, and then maybe contact them afterwards to find out how successful they've been. We're not aware that this sort of thing has happened in North Staffordshire, certainly for a good long while. So it's that was the motivation really for trying to get something set up. And as I say, Sharon from Support Staffordshire has done a lot of the legwork as regards getting these groups involved. Obviously, we're kind of doing the hosting here. Hopefully it will be a benefit just, you know, to people from Biddulph and the wider North Staffordshire as well.
Could we fire an email off to CRT?
Yeah, I've got contact there.
There's a lot of people having to pot of money at the moment, aren't there? So you'll have to get on the bandwagon pretty quick, really.
It's fine. I'll be.
We're only spare, are we?
Well, Leak, just as Leak Building Society, their fund was massively undersubscribed at the moment, so they were very keen to.
Hint.
Maybe. All right. Thank you very much. Let's move on to number 8. Give update on the Community Ownership Fund instead of options for Biddle. This was the Cole building was earmarked at one point. and others, but Sarah's got more information for us, hasn't she?
Yeah, I'm bringing this to you just to see how you feel about it really. So the community ownership fund is part of the levelling up project. We'd, I don't know how long ago, perhaps 6 or 9 months ago, put in an expression of interest with regards to one of the buildings on the high street for support to help to purchase it. It seemed to have been vacant for a long time, and I think at the time council felt that would be certainly help to regenerate the high street, but would also be a good way of raising funding for the town council. There was a very tiny little sentence somewhere in there that then said that town and parish councils couldn't apply. So fortunately, we haven't done a lot of work, but we got a bounce back to say, oh, actually, this is not for you. And then I had another email from them on the 12th of May. You'll see there to say that they've now changed the criteria, and town and parish councils are now eligible to apply for community ownership funds, and that they've changed the scheme so significantly that you can now bid for any amount from 250,000 up to £1 million for support to purchase and regenerate community projects. And there's quite a lot more to it than that. As you can imagine, it's not just a one-sided piece of paper for a pot of money that's so significant. But they're calling this round 3, and the window opens on the 31st of May.
Right.
Yeah, go for it.
What would you like?
Yeah, I think for me, is it something that you're interested in pursuing? Is there a property that you are interested in? You might want to think about being a little bit guarded.
Can I come in with a point of order? No.
Yeah, just to have more for a sec. There's a couple of buildings that we've looked at.
Yeah, but don't
Can I come in
mention
with a point of order?
Go on, then, go on.
I think this needs to move to confidential and we'll carry on with discussion because I'm conscious that this is public domain. I'm conscious that we're discussing potentially commercial arrangements with commercial private owners at this moment in time. I think it'd be very difficult to have an open meeting to sound off ideas in a open public forum.
Do you want to move that to confidential then?
Move to the end.
Yes.
All in favour? Okay, we'll move that over to confidential item then. Only got members of staff, don't it, in fact, no problem.
Or we not recording?
recording for YouTube, Chair.
Oh, is that for YouTube, as it's over?
Yeah.
I thought it was just for internal.
Only,
No, no.
it's not to keep things private. It's just
No, no, I didn't realise it being on YouTube, to be quite
Right.
honest. I thought it was just for internal.
Correct.
Right, okay, that's a fair comment, yeah. Okay, then. Number 9. For an update in relation to the shared prosperity funding.
Okay.
Officer, again,
Thank
please.
you. So we've talked in various different forums about the shared prosperity funding. So we made 3 applications to the district council. One was for support with our larger events in town. The district council had received a lot of demand for this, as I understand it, so we were placed on the reserve list. When I spoke to the officers at the district last week, they still haven't allocated all of that funding yet, so we don't know whether we're still on the reserve list or quite what the process is for that. We were encouraged to submit the bills that we had paid with regards to the development of the town hall frontage as part of the revenue side of a project going forward. As I understand it, the project board, which I guess will now be a different board, hasn't discussed those, and they're still with the officer for her to consider. The third element of shared prosperity was a broader project around the needs of older people, kind of development opportunities, support for those people within our community, and it's a feasibility study element that I understand also hasn't been considered. So the funding for this first round is due to have been spent by tomorrow.
No rush then.
So I'm assuming that
We call the wife. She minds it. Sure, she does.
I'm assuming there's going to be an extension to that, but I'm not sure whether that will be a formal, how that mechanism works, because as I understand it, that's still for them to spend the first round of funding, which was 22-23, which in all the paperwork I completed said needed to have been spent by the 31st of May. So I'm giving an update really to say that that we're still waiting for the outcome of those approaches that we made in the early spring, and that it doesn't as yet agree with the way of accessing the 23-24 funding. And I don't know how that will be allocated and what the priorities will be, but I'm keeping an eye on that and keeping in touch with officers as much as I can.
Thank you. Plenty of frustration for Councillor Woodford.
Yeah, it's this area of local government funding is a minefield, you know, it's, and I firmly believe, and I think that's something the district have got to get hold of, is getting the right people who are submitting the bids in. Because there's pots of money out all over the place, but it depends on the quality of your bid, whether we are successful or not. You know, and I'm speaking primarily for the district, but I think that's got a knock on the town and parish councils. So it's something certainly, and it may well come to scrutiny at some point, Andrew, Councillor Hod. It may well come to scrutiny at some point, because if we don't have good qualified officers who are specialised in submitting bids, we could be missing out on a lot of money long term. So for a short term, whether it's short term contracts or what, we employ people on, but we need to tap into that expertise on people who, and I'm not saying anyone on town and parish councils aren't good at submitting bids, but I think we do miss out on a number of opportunities, and certainly Biddulph missed out on the Levelling Up Fund. Now, was that because of the quality of the bid that was submitted? I don't know.
If I may, we didn't get the opportunity to submit a bid.
Well, yeah.
So-
Why? Yeah, exactly. Why weren't we on the pitch then, from a district council perspective, and have, you know, and have proper officers in place to do that? Because of that, I just think we're missing out on a lot of money that is floating about because we haven't got. I'm not criticising the district council, but we haven't got the right people in the right place to be doing them bids on our behalf.
So as I understand it with the shared prosperity, just to come back on that, the funding's been allocated to the district council already. It's sitting there waiting to be spent. The invited bids for the first year, 22-23, which they still haven't determined, and there's no criteria for how they're going to allocate 23-24. So as far as I'm concerned, the ball is very much in the district council offices and the lack of decision-making process around shared prosperity. So whether that looks like councillor decision-making, or whether that's officers empowered to make that decision, something is not happening.
Thank you for that. Councillor Yates, please. Next.
Yes, just like a clarification on the two funds. All the shared prosperity fund is the post-Brexit replacement for the European Regional Development Fund. Now, there is a significant flaw in the post-Brexit replacement for the European Regional Development Fund, and that the European Regional Development Fund was to be spent over 7 years, which meant that if you got an award and the award was an allocation based on, you know, the needs, because it was to develop and level up, it gave you time to plan, it gave you time to fill out the quote, it gave you time to do the groundwork, and it gave you time to deliver. The problem with the shared prosperity fund is it fits in with the parliamentary political cycle, which means that when they form a parliament, they then ruminate to make a decision to decide to do it. That eats away part of the finance. They then decide what funding they allocate and how they're going to allocate it, because it's not competitive bidding. That eats away a portion of the time. It then goes out to the council. So, for example, the reason that this money should have been, it's got to be spent by the end of this year, is really it should have been allocated last April, and it wasn't allocated until November, December time. So it ate into 9 months of that. So it's an artificial timescale and constraint, which has no bearing on the reality of building a property or developing a project. It's just based on the timescale of a sitting parliament. And certainly from an Industrial Communities Alliance point of view, the main lobbying group for deprived areas, for borough and district councils, one of the significant and main complaints which we've got is to make sure that this funding goes over a number of parliaments, and it hasn't got to be done in one parliament because it's delivering low quality poor projects which haven't got value for money. And when it comes to the levelling up fund, that's even worse, because not only is that within the political cycle, but it's competitive bidding, and everybody is allowed to bid for it, whether you're a council in Richmond or whether you're a council in Cornwall, which is deprived or whatever. And you don't know if you've got it until it actually goes through the bidding process. And generally speaking, it takes 2 officers 3 months to prepare a bid, which is extremely expensive and extremely wasteful. Now, the problem in Staffordshire Moorlands, so I understand, is that the timescale was so short for putting your bids in, they just scrabbled around for whatever was available, which they'd worked up for whatever reason, and they didn't have funding for it, and they grabbed it off the shelf. So this thing about which Councillor Jackson's always said, make sure you've got space for projects. They happen to have a couple of things on the shelf which they blew off. They happened to be in leak. There was nothing that they had in middle. They put a bid for, they crossed the fingers, and lo and behold, they got £17 million, which come as a surprise to them as much as anything else. The only reason Cheadle was put forward as a bid is that the bids were based on constituency boundaries, not on borough council or district council boundaries. So Cheadle is in Stone parliamentary constituency. Therefore, they were allowed to submit the second bid. But the reality of it is that they had very little chance. So what happened is that the previous administration sort of got embarrassed at the fact that a significant bid had gone into Stone for Cheadle, a significant had gone into Leek for Staffordshire Moorlands. Biddle was the forgotten town because we had nothing and they were focused on projects which they'd already developed up and had. They then panicked and said, but don't worry about it, we're going to get shared prosperity fund, which they are not allocating. It's allocated by a board, which is independent of the council itself. So they had no right to say that. They then said, don't worry, Biddle will have the lion's share of the shared prosperity fund. Of course, what happened? Cheadle didn't get the levelling up bid. Yeah. So Cheadle said, that lion's share, can it have a couple of cups? Because we've got nothing either. So, mishmash. So you've got a condensed time, a fund which isn't fit for purpose, and a massive rate fund which has gone to Leek, and now the shared prosperity fund, Leek can bid for that as well. And Leek are quite good at bidding for things, because they've got loads of projects on the shelf. So we're fighting with ourselves. Has that somebody talk?
Yeah.
Mr. Councillor Hart?
I would say that's 90%.
Next, Councillor Hart, so carry on.
I don't disagree with Chris is right. Sorry, Councillor Wood. Councillor Wood is absolutely right. The district council doesn't have the right officers to bid for stuff. And luckily enough, you've got an officer come from Derbyshire, who I worked with previously at the Peak Leader project for several years, and I was the vice chair and then the acting chair for that. And we managed to find projects, and they were worthy projects to the value of £5.7 million in 2 phases. And it was from rural items and all sorts of other things into car renovation project in Bakewell that was buying a £5,000 machine so they could employ 2 more employees, and it was centered around how much employment could it actually generate, but that was out of the European funding. So you're right. What happens with the European funding is it was well established. We got into it late because we didn't have any regional government, because that was rejected, and they started feeding it out to county councils and created like a good organisation that could actually assess bids coming in from all sorts of people. Staffordshire was concentrating on the community. The Peak was concentrating on supporting business. I preferred the supporting business because it created a lot of jobs. But when, for instance, when they got the money for Biddulph Leisure Centre, that was because we had the foresight to actually get the energy survey done, so and the property survey to see whether it was suitable to put the photoelectric cells on the roof, and all the information was lined up. So that was almost a spade-ready project, ready to go. You complained through the chair, Nigel, Mr. Councillor Yates, that they had the scaffolding up a few months ago, and they could have put them on then, but they hadn't got the money. So the money's come through, and I had a briefing with the head of finance, with the vice chair, Andrew Church, and he's got a million quid come in from Share Prosperity. That's in the bank now. But the mechanisms for actually sorting it out are terrible, absolutely terrible. We need more officers at the district to actually sort these bids out, because a bid opens at 12 o'clock and some of these funds are shut by 12:58. That's how close it is. So somebody's going to have to get their act together, well and truly, Chair, well and truly. But I don't disagree with either of the two speakers that have just gone, because each of them has got very, very valid points. Something's going to have to change.
Thank you for that. I mean, on these, putting these bids in, it's key words, isn't it? And people seem to get these key words just correct. It just clicks. Yes, we'll sort that out for you. Councillor Lawton, then Jackson, Hawley and Jones, please.
I just very briefly like to say, because much of what I was going to say has been expressed most eloquently by Councillor Yates and Councillor Hart. I was concerned at the start of the piece that the council officers seemed to come in for potential criticism and shortcoming. And I was concerned about that, because as has been illustrated with the two gentlemen's explanations, it's far more complicated than that. There's all sorts of aspects that need consideration, and I'd like to say that I think the officers may play a little part, as you said, but only a part in a wider picture.
Yeah. Councillor Jackson, please.
Yeah, I mean, my concern with this is it was sort of ring fenced, or the promise of a ring fence, as near as it could be for Biddle, because we missed out on shared prosperity, on the levelling up fund. It's 4.8 million, I think this fund is, isn't it? I think
3.7.
Is it?
3.4.
Around the four.
there's a rural element as well to it. To add,
600,000.
sorry,
600,000 through the chair.
takes it to what altogether, the whole thing.
4.
Right. Well, whatever. Call it 4 million. Now I can live with Cheadle having a slice of this. I can live with that. You know, because they missed out on levelling up the same as we did. Well, at least they did have a bid. But what I can't stomach is being given £17 million of levelling up funding, and then expecting to do this as well. And it's already happening. Now, I'm not certain, but in that first tranche, Sarah, in that first tranche, have we had any indication on which bids were successful? Because I'm hearing Leak got some money out of the first tranche.
The first round, didn't the Leak?
Yeah, the only thing I've heard is this bit about us being on the reserve list for events. So as I understand, the only element of that they've agreed is this support for events and activities. And Leak, I believe, got money for that.
So this is the point. This is the point. And it's really down to the district council now, politically, to say, look, this is where we are with this. And this money is ring fenced. Now, I don't know, there's probably some rule that says you can't, but if they can ring fence levelling up funding and move it from poor areas to more affluent areas, which has happened, Rishi Sunak did it. then I think there's a real problem because, you know, 4 million quid between two large towns is not going to go all that far. And I'm sure we can come up with enough stuff to actually spend at least 2 million of that. I mean, I'm hopeful of getting a sizable chunk of it for what the work we want to do at the front of the town hall here. And it's, to me, it just seems like the perfect thing, the perfect vehicle for getting that funded. But fundamentally, I attended the training session for this, and I don't know about anybody else, but I was more confused when I came out of it. I was more confused when I came out of it. I got nothing from that, except when I had a conversation with one of the officers in the hall about revenue and capital. And it's 15%, is it capital or something? I think, yeah, which is a very small amount of this £2 million. If we split it evenly with Cheadle, and we're a bigger town than Cheadle, so we could argue we should have a little bit more. So it's really disheartening that we find out that Leek have been successful in dipping the toe into this fund, and we've gone on the reserve list. Now, did all three of our bids go on the reserve list, or just the events?
There's no decision at all about the other ones.
About the other two, so it's the events one that's on that, and the front of the town hall, it didn't even get a mention. So really, there needs to be at the district a banging of heads together to get some clarity on this fund, and our displeasure from this town council, for me anyway, that Leek's dipping their toe into a fund that really, morally, should be coming here because of the way we were treated in the levelling up bid. So, you know, and it's really down to the district councillors now to actually hammer that home. That, you know, that fund, and I don't know whether you can, like I say, but ideally, that fund wants ring fencing for Biddulph and Cheadle. Like I say, I'm not bothered. I'm really not bothered about Cheadle getting a share of that because they missed out as well. You know, it's just being, you know, fair that Cheadle gets a slice of it. But, you know, really, for Leek to get £17 million and then being able to dip into that is morally wrong, and it shouldn't happen.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. At the meeting, I said I want a yes or no answer. Will Bill get a fair chunk of this money? Yes, definitely.
Where was that from? Councillor Flunder. Yeah.
Definitely said, definitely.
He hasn't had control of his officers, has he? He has not had control of the officers. He's got no control over this board, really. Or the last administration had no control of the board. It was really all officer-led. Sorry, Chair, put it in there, shouldn't have done.
Councillor Hawley.
Yeah, the thing that concerns me, but when we're talking about the levelling up fund, and you're saying, no, Leek had got, or the district council got 2 projects on the shelf that they could just pull off from Leek. And I'm sort of thinking, hang on, aren't they working in conjunction with Leek Town Council? Because it makes me wonder if Staffordshire Moorlands is actually supporting Leek, as, I mean, the way you sort of look at the way things are funded from Staffordshire Moorlands. And I'm thinking, well, we've got projects that we could actually, but nobody actually came to us. Should they actually have sort of contact with all 3 town councils whereby projects that we've got are on their shelf as well? Because that doesn't seem to be happening. And I just sort of think that somewhere along the line, if they could just pull two projects off the shelf that were to do with Leek, and basically there's nothing there from Biddle, you know, what are they playing at?
Yeah.
I mean, it is basically, to my mind, unfair in the way things are done. And I sort of look at the way things are happening, Leek. Basically, I've got 2 sons who live there, and I sort of see, I think there's so much happens there, and it's all supported by the district council rather than the town council. And I'm thinking, we don't get that sort of support here. And I'm sort of thinking, well, it's up now to the new district council to actually sort of change that. I mean, because to my mind, it just isn't fair.
That's the whole. Thank you very much, Kevin Jackson. Let's just
very quick.
We go to
out of the 2 bids that went for levelling up funding, for me, Cheadle was far superior, and would have made a much bigger difference to Cheadle than what the bid from Leek has done. It's a bit, you know, carting up a market, really. That's basically what it boils down to, and the Nicholson Institute. And that's it. What could have done, if that money had gone to Cheadle, could have transformed the centre of Cheadle, could have done a hell of a lot more. And out of the two bits, Cheadle was far better as far as I'm concerned.
Councillor Jones.
Yeah, well, I'm as frustrated as anybody, and I fully support everything that Councillor Jackson said, but the other thing I wanted to do was just say thank you to Councillor Yates for his very detailed explanation as to what went wrong and why Biddulph became the forgotten town, because up until May the 4th, I thought it was all my fault.
Administration.
That's all I'm saying.
That's what people were being told.
Too sensitive.
Yeah. Well, two more speakers, Councillor Holdsworth and Yates, then we'll move on.
I might be missing out here, and I am new to the organisation. But have we spent the last 15 minutes talking about the inefficiencies of central government, county council, district council, which this council can do nothing about? There is a new administration now at Leek. So if they want to do something, then it's the new administration that has to do something, surely. Yeah, we can moan and complain about it. But all we've done is talked about other people's inefficiencies. And I just felt it was a waste of time.
Chair, I did call on the district councillors to force the hand of the district council.
I know.
And these are the people that should be able to do it.
I know what you said, but all we've talked about is other people's inefficiencies. That's all that's been said for the last 15 minutes.
If we'd had our own say in our own way, we'd have got somewhere, but unfortunately, we just don't get our own say in our way that easy, do we?
No, and I think the purpose for the agenda item is because we talked a lot about shared prosperity funding, and you need to know what the current position is. So that's where we're at. We still have 2 undecided bids, one where we're on a reserve list. Quite what the reserve list is, I don't know, and no indication as to how next year's funding will be spent. So so you don't think that I'm sitting twiddling my thumbs. My role is to work on your behalf, and currently I'm not able to do that because there's nothing to do. So, if there's a different direction of travel, or you want me to lobby in a different way, or we want to put it firmly in the court of the district councillors, then that's the discussion, obviously. But that's where I'm up to with that as regards to my work.
We have to suspend.
Not sure if I've done it. Ms. Holdsworth.
I was making no criticism of what the council officers have done or tried to do. It was quite obvious that you've been banging your head against the brick wall. What I was talking about was the fact that we spent so long talking about something we didn't do nothing about. The new administration might be able to do something about it, but we can't.
I understand what you're saying. Can we just wrap this up quickly, please? But Councillor Yates and then Wood, and then I'm moving on.
Yes, I don't think there's a way to start talking about and debating it, because this is a very strong lobbying for that. We also need an understanding of what the actual funds are and what they actually meant to do. The only comment I will say about the Shared Prosperity Fund, which is a writing comment, is that it isn't directed at town and parish councils per se. Voluntary and separate organisations, and totally independent of town and parish councils can bid for them. So we're not just competing for money against Cheadle, Bolton, wherever. We're competing against other organisations and other voluntary organisations who can bid for it, whether it be organisations and Biddulph like the Youth Zone and Green Tree House as well. So there is an element of muddiness to it, and there is an element of lack of focus. But the other thing which is important to know is that it is the decision-making process is outside the elected councillors' sphere. It goes to a quango, it goes to a board of elected officers, and not even civil servants. It goes to a board supporting each other on that board. Now, they're unaccountable. We're the ones who are accountable if this money doesn't come to us and it goes wrong. Yeah, accountable people are not making that decision, which I think is
College as well, one of the colleges.
Thank you. Councillor Wood, can you just wrap this up?
Yeah, I respect Councillor Holdsworth's view, as it might seem negative, but welcome to local government. Because what you've got is, you just seem constantly banging your head against a brick wall to try and improve local things. And, you know, yes, previous administrations have submitted bids and whatever. All we're trying to do on a, you know, and I'm talking for Biddulph tonight because we're Biddulph Town Council. We're trying to get what we can for Biddulph, you know, and if we have got to upset the apple cart sometimes, we've got to do that. But the situation is at the minute is I don't think Biddulph have had the fair share of funding. I think that's a given. So what we try and say is, and Councillor Jackson's right, we need projects on the shelf that have got to be there ready to go. And what we've got to do with the officers in the district who are preparing or potentially preparing bids on behalf of Biddulph and other places, that them projects have got to be ready to go. And what we haven't got, I don't think, at the moment, is that infrastructure at the district council that's happening. So that's something I certainly, and I think Councillor Hart supports that. That's something I certainly want to progress at the district council because we're missing out on so much. And ultimately, you know, Nigel keep, you know, the forgotten town. Well, technically we are in terms of funding allocations. We want what's best, and I think that's all of us cross party want what's best for Biddulph, but we're not getting there yet. So we've got to keep knocking on the door, and if it sounds negative, you know, then so be it, because unless you criticise something that isn't working and try to change it, then we never can get a fair share of the funding. So we've got to, you know, knock the negativities, if you like, and highlight the negativities to bring some positives into it. And that's what hopefully I'm going to try to achieve. And I think that's the, you know, certainly the administration that's in control at the district council at the minute. That's our view.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. I think we can say everybody on town council is very, very frustrated, and everybody in Biddulph is very frustrated. And we're going to have to move on. We've got a lot to go through yet, but thank you for all your input. Number 10, policies attached to reviewed employees' code of conduct. Now, this one, the new ones, we can go through it more if you wish, but mainly it's just to look at the highlighted red parts to make sure you agree with the red items. Changes. If you want to know more, please shout.
I'll move them, Chair.
I'll second
I can do that. All in favour of that.
Yeah.
All right.
It was only date change, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Move the second one.
Second one, I just want to
Look in the
explain on vacancy. On B.
Look in the dictionaries for that, the second one.
Yeah, it's to further review policy of the U. So amanuensis. I have to think of it myself. Amanuensis. What this is, just in brief, it was written partly for Councillor Sylvia Rushton, who's got obviously sight disability, and she can give somebody the authority, in this case her daughter, to read confidential items to her on the understanding that she will not pass that on to anybody else. Councillor Jones.
So is Ken going to do that when he forgets his glasses?
I've had 2 new fares today.
He's bought a spare bed.
Yeah, am I in the barrel or what?
It's just the date.
Yeah, so on that one, it's just updating the dates. Just
Here we go, I'll vote on it, Chairman.
all in favour of that.
Yeah.
Okay, fine, thank you. You. Those two.
I'm getting a complex, you know.
Back in general, disposal of any assets. I don't think we've got any at the moment, have we? We ain't got any at the moment.
You want?
To confirm approved suppliers as part of procurement policy.
No, just a note to say we are attempting to find, to establish a more varied list of approved suppliers. And so those are the people who we have actually all of their paperwork for, and who that we can call upon for either emergency work or to provide quotations for bigger projects. So we've got a policy on that already, and we are attempting to widen that list. I suppose that's the best way to put it. So yes, if you know anybody in there obviously they must be able to work in commercial buildings. And have appropriate insurances to do that, risk assessments, methods, the types of things they undertake. And then we'll go through a kind of vetting process for them, which we'll then revisit every 12 months.
Move it, Chair.
All in favour of that one, okay? Thank you very much. That closes this part of the meeting, then we'll have to go into confidential, so if we can stop the recording, please, and go into confidential.